The acronym for SAFER, and a lot of you might not know that it's an acronym, it means Safety Assessment to Evaluate Rehoming. So it is a rehoming program, again, by design. And ways that it can save lives. Every dog is handled and examined. That's even true for the ALITY programs as well. Every animal is handled. So physical well-being, making sure that they're free of mange and ticks and all of this is part of well-being. So that handling is really important. The individual behaviors identified, again, as I said before, it's not related to breed or sex or gender, or age, any of those things. It's the individual that we're looking at. And each dog can be quickly tracked successfully through this system. So through that system means different things on different days, but it's adoption floor, foster, rescue, behavior modification. As was mentioned earlier, the Petrie Foundation is meant to increase fosters. That's another program that we have that can help get these dogs out. But it's live release, so we need to find ways to get them there. That's why we're here to support. The words we use do matter. So temperament test versus aggression assessment. I think there's a lot of confusion around this too. They're used inappropriately sometimes. Temperament by definition is a mental or physical character that's regarded as innate. So think of a pointer pointing. That's an innate behavior. And the word test implies a pass-fail. We've all taken a test in our life. Aggression assessment, on the other hand, SAFER is an aggression assessment, so that outcome informs you about resources and support for that dog. How it informs you is, I'll go into more detail in a second, but it's a scale of 1 through 5. It gives you an idea of the resources this dog would need for that live outcome. So it guides the process. It's never used alone, but it guides that process. And the cool thing, I'm a behaviorist, right? So behavior is flexible. Pointing pointers is a lot less flexible when you're talking about innate behaviors, but aggression can be changed. That's the beauty of it. So language does matter. So SAFER is an aggression assessment. It is a snapshot of current behavior with a narrow lens on aggression. So we're not looking at how playful, how food motivated. That's the ALITY program. We're really just looking at aggression and safety. Proper placement, so, and I said this before, but it's not the only piece of the puzzle, right? There's lots of other ways that we currently, certainly, are collecting information on the shelter, tracking animals through your system, through ACO reports or owner surrender, history, vet exam, staff interactions. All of those things are still critical and still a part of SAFER. And that 1 through 5 reveals resources for placement. So a dog that scores a 1, I can give you a visual. It's like a dog with an open mouth, ears are back, his body is loose and wagging. That dog's going to need less resources than a dog who has bitten over food or guards his toy or snaps when you touch his collar, right? So that's what that 1 through 4 reveals, that those resources needed. What does SAFER need? It needs 2 people. It can be done by staff and or a volunteer, as long as there's 2. It takes about 10 minutes. You do need a helper dog and a video camera. And again, focuses on probability of aggression with that focus on objective body language. So it's not how I feel about the dog, it's did the dog open his mouth or close his mouth? Did he head flip when I touched his collar? Did he jump on me when? It's very objective. It's really what a video camera can observe, not my opinion. And there is a certification process, and this is something that we've had for, since 2005, I think. And we highly recommend, if you are a facility using SAFER, that you do get certified. There are lots of ways to do this. We can do it remotely, just like how Dr. Weiss is on a webcam right now. This is very much how I would do a coaching certification with someone anywhere in the country. I mean, I live close, so I can come down and do it here, but the point being is that it's available to everyone who wants you handle a dog. We coach you to do all the handling, and I'd probably do it in person here. But that certification can also be done remotely. So there's a lot of support for this certification. We encourage certification, obviously, to make sure that the assessment is being done correctly or as it's designed. And also to ensure that you can understand body language. We just want to make sure that everything is being done as described, that there's not creative options being added, so that we have the validity of the data behind it. So it's a 7-item assessment The overview here is insight to response to a stranger, looking at their face, touching their collar, body, paws, how they respond when aroused. So during that tag, we get them excited. Resource guarding issues, so food and toy. And then also dog behavior when on leash. And again, all of this you can actually see videos of the assessment being done online. There's a behavior score for each item, and again, it informs the support for placement. So whether that be to a transfer or to adoption, to rescue. 1 and 2, I think I've already mentioned this, has a low likelihood of aggression. Those dogs that have a loose, open mouth, they're highly, they may be social when you come in the door. They just have a low likelihood of aggression. 3 means potential behavior modification, doesn't mean you have to, just we're recommending that. And 4 and 5 are dogs that have a higher likelihood of aggression because they either growled, froze, or tried to bite at some point during the assessment. How is SAFER used? It is part of this placement profile. So adoption, rescue, foster, it can be used as an intake tool on the front end for owner surrenders. It's used for prevention of breed bans. Actually, I was lucky enough to go to Paris Island when the breed ban happened 2 years ago. We went down and assessed bully breeds. There was a ban, but first they were looking at canine good citizen assessment, which wasn't appropriate, so they chose SAFER. So we came down and assessed 85 pit bulls, and I think there were like 2 Rotties in the mix, and only one of those dogs, which had been a trained fighting dog, was unsafe to stay on base, but all those other 84 out of those 85 stayed. It can be used in private consult. So as a behaviorist, I have my own business for 6 years. I certainly would use SAFER if someone had just adopted a dog from a shelter and they didn't know anything about it. They saw some behavior. We would run through SAFER so we could gather more information about how to proceed. What are some of these sticking points for the dog? What are they sensitive to, having their collar touched or that sort of thing? And really any situation where you want to gather more information. So research. The initial research was at Kansas Humane Society, so this was back in 1998 or 9, and looked at 2 groups of dogs coming into Kansas Humane Society, randomly assigned, 92 dogs total. 1 group was assessed with SAFER, the other was given the veterinary check. I should say that both dogs were veterinary checked, just 1 group had the SAFER, 1 group did not. And they were followed through adoption. By following through, that's a phone call 2 weeks later, asking the adopters very specific questions about behavior in the home. When asked, has your dog nipped in the past 2 weeks? Those dogs that were in the assessed group, 4, and those in the no assessment were 14. When asked, had their dog showed any guarding over food? 1 in the assessed group versus 5 in the not assessed group. When asked about aggression over toys, or guarding behavior over toys, 2 were assessed, 5 came from the not assessed group. Those that growled at a human, 1 was from the assessed group, 10 were from the not assessed, for a total of 8 and 34. At this point, Kansas Humane Society actually felt it was unethical to place a dog without further assessments. So we have more data since then. I just wanted to share the seeds of SAFER. Riverside also came to one of our workshops, felt, the idea that, it's great in these other places in Kansas Humane, but what about California? So they replicated it. They used a similar survey, similar model, same number of dogs, 2 groups, same model. Follow-up 2 weeks in the home, growling at a human, 1 was assessed, 14 not assessed. Who bit a human, 1 was assessed, 7 were not assessed. And who bit and broke skin, 2 versus 0, for assessed, and 2 for not assessed. So again, similar. And I can tell you that it can be hard to get data from shelters. It's not something that a lot of shelters do, so it can be hard to get this, but we're very happy when other shelters do it because it really helps show how SAFER can be used in lots of different places around the country. So in the past few weeks, we have pulled what we could. So New York City is probably the best fit as far as a comparison to LA, as far as population, municipal shelter, and they are using SAFER. So we asked them, so this is a direct quote from them actually, the ASPCA SAFER assessment has helped to increase live release rate of canines. Live release has steadily increased since the adoption of the program. Live release rate in 2008 was 58%, has risen year to date to 73%. SAFER's allowed us to more efficiently move dogs out into rescue and foster by identifying individual behavioral needs. Transfers as a percentage of intakes for dogs have increased at an impressive rate. Transfers at 33% prior now are 48%. So again, it can save lives. Spokane Municipal, live release rate was already high, but still they saw an increase from 79.5% in 2008 to 84.3% in 2011. A quote from Spokane, getting the program up and running was a minimal cost. It takes time to identify and train the volunteers, but well worth the effort. We do pay some evaluators once they are certified or rated at $14 per hour. These are part-time and not benefited positions. We require the evaluators to train and certify as volunteers, and we do not pay evaluators until they are certified. Excuse me. Mesa County, Colorado has also been using SAFER and was kind enough to supply some data. Their live release rate increased from 58% to 79%. And their quote is, as a government facility, we are required to monitor and support our staffing levels with statistics that support our performance measures. One of our performance measures is to euthanize 0 adoptable dogs. Because this SAFER assessment was necessary to identify and reach this goal, and we determined that the time allotted for staff to complete the assessment would be offset by a decrease in the time spent, associated costs of humanely euthanizing healthy animals, we were able to keep the costs contained within our approved staffing level. So, what is the plan? So, we need to examine the current animal flow. Honestly, we don't know which shelter we're proposing this at first. That requires a conversation. It's going to take time to gather information about which shelter's even interested, which would make the most sense, staff, volunteer time, how much support it's going to require from us. I mean, we are willing to offer whatever support needs to be, and we know that we might not know right now today what those needs would be, but we're certainly willing to offer more, whether that be financial or boots on the ground. So examining is the first step. And whichever shelter examining that staff and volunteer flow, all of these programs need support from volunteers and rescues or they can't work. So we definitely have to be working together or this can't work. And we have common goals. We want to save more lives. So I think we can find a resolution. We are willing to offer a grant to support a supported position to oversee implementation. So that means someone who's here all the time. That means me coming down as needed. A 2-day workshop at a minimum with hands-on follow-up, boots on the ground for training. Building a volunteer base and training for that program implementation. And training rescue groups. So the nice thing with any of these programs is that it creates a common language among communities. I can't tell you, I mean, I've been in a lot of communities where things are segregated at first, and we bring the program in, and it allows for this common language so that if I'm a rescue, I can call up, Western LA and say, do you have any go-getters? It's a direct conversation on which dogs are available when, and also to adopters and all of the things. But the idea is it helps build this cohesiveness for ease of transfer. And of course, since we're shelter R&D, measuring and reporting are part of what we require. So we need transparency on if we do this pilot at X shelter, we do it for X amount of time. We need to know that our resources are well spent and that we actually are saving lives. And I can tell you personally, as an employee, I am sometimes surprised at what we don't fund because it might not save enough lives. So that is our goal. There is no other underlying mission here except to save lives. So I'd like to end with a video, actually 3. So what you'll see here is just an example of a food assessment that was given. So this was actually before we even had the food protocol in place. I just want to show one way that this dog is getting a puppyality. So there's a food assessment in this assessment, and you'll see some guarding behavior. So this was sent to us, which is how we created this food program. Let me just show the video so you can see the behavior first. So that was sent to us with a plea of what do we do. In this, you'll see the date here. It took about 3 weeks for this dog, but quite honestly, the food program now can be done in less than a week, and easily done in foster home. It can be done in shelter as well. But just to give you an idea of what that looks like. Feet approaching means something good is coming. So again, this took 3 weeks at that time. Now that we actually have the program solidified, this can be done. I mean, some of these puppies have turned around like 3 days, literally. I mean, it can happen fast. So again, just one way that you can save lives through by using an assessment to help identify some of these things. And last video, I'm taking up your time. This video is actually one of my favorites because it shows a dog that in a lot of shelters, this dog would not be actually taken out of the kennel because of the behavior shown. And that's the beauty of using a standardized assessment, is that you try and get every dog out, no matter what you see. And you can see when you open the door of this kennel, what this dog does. So, they can learn this in one day in the shelter, but unfortunately, I mean, I've worked in shelters that we would pass a dog by because we would label him kennel aggressive or barrier aggression or one of the other 22 labels that we use for aggression. And by just opening the door and acting like a person, getting a clip leash, bringing him into the assessment room gives this dog a chance. So I really like it for that reason. That's all I have to share, and I don't know how the process goes now.